I was watching a video that contains Nick Vujicic, and, he's someone I admire very much. He's lived his whole life as well, a, a, I'm not sure the exact name of his condition, but it's essentially as though he's an extreme quadriplegic, and yet he manages to lead a very fulfilling life and a very full life. Uh, and he travels around the world delivering these talks about the difference that faith has made in his life in terms of his ability to cope with his condition. I admire him greatly. uh, but in his talk, he starts it off by talking about the different stresses and complaints that people have about life at different phases, and he seems to be mocking people a little bit. And I think it should be fair enough to have a laugh at yourself, and maybe in saying all of this I am being overly sensitive, but there is this point in his talk where he talks about how there are people who say, oh, I wish I could find someone to marry. If I could find someone to marry, I'd be happy, my life would be well. Uh, and then he says, but, all the married people will tell you that if you don't know how to be happy by yourself, you can't be happy within a marriage. And there is a certain level at which I actually agree with him, in that if you are living your life from a place of just being dissatisfied with everything you have all the time, then really it doesn't matter how good your life gets. You lack the essential tools for being happy and satisfied. That much I agree with. However, in his claim that you can't be happier within a marriage than you can be without one, he is being somewhat hypocritical, since later in his talk he cites his wife and kids as one of his reasons for feeling that his life is fulfilling, even though he has the condition he has. He talks about how, growing up he never thought that he would be able to marry a woman, and yet he's married to a beautiful woman and has, multiple children with her. And, I think that a lot of people are this way, where they'll hypocritically mock people for wanting to find a partner, but then within themselves they still believe that having a partner is a wonderful thing. And a lot of the people who say this are married people, and take great delight in their partners. And so, yeah, but more than just being hypocritical as a response, it denies the real concerns, I think, of the unmarried person. I mean, given that Nick Vujicic is dealing in Christian circles, it may very well be that the person seeking a partner might be doing so because they want to obey God with their sexuality. I think that should be respected as an objective. It may be that this person does actually have a realistic set of ideals and beliefs about a relationship, and it is simply the fact that they want one. That's possible too. Just because somebody wants a relationship, it does not necessarily mean that their perspective on relationships is unrealistic. It can simply mean that they just want to be able to have that connection with another human being. And, certainly, it isn't good to be overly fixated on this notion of having a partner, or to think that your life can't be fulfilling and happy if you don't have a life partner. But the thing is, people who say this may be, like, even if they are living in that wrongful assumption that, oh, if I just had a partner I'd be fulfilled and happy, making fun of these people isn't going to help them. Like, why would you think that? If the problem with this person is more profound, if it's that they lack deeper relationships in their life, and quality friendships, and they live in the mistaken belief that if they just had a life partner, that feeling of loneliness would go away. If that's the problem with this person, then making fun of them as soon as they try to talk to you about these feelings of loneliness is not going to help them. It's going to exacerbate their situation, because their essential problem is that they believe that you have to be in a romantic relationship with someone in order to be participating in a meaningful relationship with somebody, which is not true in the first place. I think this is partly what is wrong with our culture. We make the claim that the marriage relationship isn't special or unique in terms of quality, and yet there is a level of kindness and empathy we will treat our romantic partners with that we won't extend to anyone else. It's hypocritical. Either this relationship is closer than any of the other types of relationships you can have, or it's not. Can you see what I'm saying? If you really believe that all close relationships should be equal, then you shouldn't need that special qualification of having somebody as a potential sex partner for you to be kind or respectful towards them, or empathetic towards them, or sympathetic towards them. That should not be a prerequisite at all. You should be able to be kind to them regardless of their relationship with you. And yet we don't do this. We tend to be much nicer to the people we would ideally have as life partners than to the people we would have as friends. And, personally, this is something that I'm trying to fight and not do as much, but even I find that I do it. If I am wanting to have someone as my partner, or if I'm getting ready to have someone as my partner, I tend to treat them differently from how I would if I was thinking of them purely as a friend. And, there is an extent to which this is socially necessary. I mean, of course, if you're going to treat everybody exactly the same, that's the end of monogamy. That's the end of even polygamy. It's the end, you know what I mean? You can't, you can't just go around being that way with everyone. At least you can't as a Christian. I don't know what other people from other religions and cultures think, but you can't. If you are a Christian, you have to treat your partner differently. And if we are going to admit that monogamy is special, that it's a unique type of relationship, then we have to admit that a person is not wrong in thinking that their life would be different if they had a life partner. We should allow them to feel that way, and we should be honest and acknowledge that if we are going to celebrate marriage as something special and unique above being single, because that's the truth of the matter. We celebrate marriage, we don't celebrate singleness. If we're going to function culturally that way, then we should expect that people will, on some level, believe that they would be more fulfilled within a marriage than they would be outside of one. I think that's to be expected. Whether it's true or not is a separate question. But the fact is, if we're going to act as if it's true, we have to expect that at least some people are going to think and feel that way. And if you are going to say, well, you should be seeking fulfillment without a marriage, well, that's great. That's great, because the more you want marriage and don't have it, the more your happiness and unhappiness hinges upon other human beings. But that's the thing. If we really believe that this person should not need marriage to be fulfilled, we should not be creating additional obstacles to their sense of fulfillment. We should not be treating them as though they need someone else to requite their feelings and to marry them for their contributions to be worthwhile. And unfortunately, as a culture, we do tend to do this. We do sometimes tend to treat married people as if they're inherently more brilliant and wise than unmarried people. That's not really fair. If you really believe that being married and not married are equal choices, you should be treating these people with equal respect and not considering one to be better than the other just because one of them is married and one isn't. Because let me tell you, people can get married for a host of really stupid reasons. Like the very fact that I'm having to make this video is proof of that. We all know on some level that there are bad reasons to marry. And so just because someone is married, we shouldn't be treating them as if they're superior. In fact, I've met people who are married, and They're not particularly nice or intelligent or kind or better than single people in any way, really. In fact, in some of them married people I've met were surprisingly flawed. I literally looked at them and thought, really? You're married? Really? You were able to find somebody who saw all your faults and thought, I want in. Like, really? Like, but that is the mystery of love, I suppose, and that is, I guess, the message of grace too, that is within Christianity, that our love for people should not be limited by the ideals of perfection. We should be able to see the value in a person, even if they are imperfect, because God looked at us for our faults and still saw the potential in us. And, so again, I'm going to say, if we will suggest that singleness and marriage are equal in terms of value, we need to be treating them as such. We need to be treating these people as equals. And if we won't, then we have to admit that we are actually prioritizing and celebrating marriage above, singleness as a life choice. Does that mean people should start celebrating singleness and holding singleness parties? And, if they are, not going to marry ever? Maybe, if somebody has made the decision that they will never marry, then hey, maybe they should hold a party to celebrate it. But at the same time, I feel like this shame that we place on people for wanting a partner, because there is shame involved. There is an amount of shame in telling people, no, your desire for a partner is wrong and silly and stupid. It's shame. And it's toxic. Shame is toxic in this case in particular, because it isn't actually wrong to want a partner. Throughout the Bible, we can find that many of the heroes of the Bible took the concept of marriage very seriously and took the act of finding a partner very seriously. And typically there were people who were willing to help them in this task of finding a partner. We don't have that in our culture anymore. In Christianity, we still say that a person should not have sexual relations until they're married, and yet we still hold this, and yet we don't do things the way we did in the old days, where we'd hold special parties and gatherings and help each other to find partners. We just sort of make fun of people who want partners and don't have one, and then expect it all to somehow work out. And, I don't think it should be any surprise at this point that a lot of people within Christian circles have ended up married to non-Christian people as a consequence. In fact, I think that as time goes on, we're probably going to see more and more of this happening, and we're also going to see more and more people leaving the faith, not for legitimate reasons, but simply because it has become unlivable. It's become impracticable. And yes, I'm aware that this is a fairly superficial and flimsy reason for leaving a commitment like faith, like your very beliefs about the nature of the universe. But the fact is that there is an internal conflict there. There's a conflict between what your body will tell you is natural to you day to day and what your culture will tell you should be doing. And even within that culture, there's a conflict between what that culture says you should be doing and what that culture actually supports you in doing. Can you see the problem there? There's a real inherent problem in our current culture of Christianity. If we're going to say to people, you should get married and only have relations then with your partner, but at the same time we make it increasingly difficult for people to actually find a partner. If we shame people when they seek a partner, and yet we shame them if they have relations outside of marriage as well. But it's not sustainable as a set of cultural values, and it shouldn't be this way. It is not in line with biblical teaching to function this way as a culture. We should be helping each other instead of making things harder. What would that look like in practice? I don't actually know. But what I do know is that this isn't loving. If we really want to be loving to our Christian brother and sister, I think there should be more empathy on this matter, and I think people should also be willing to perhaps offer more empathy to themselves and to stop listening to the people who try to make them feel bad about wanting a partner, because it isn't wrong to want a partner. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that it's wrong to want to get married. It's only society that has fairly recently tried to make us feel this way, and it's wrong. It's just wrong. There is no real way to logically or factually substantiate this way of thinking. It's purely I don't think it even has its foundations in legitimate psychology. I think it's purely a product of pop cultural zeitgeist. And I don't even think they entirely buy into it, because they'll still tell stories in pop culture about people falling in love. So, yeah, make of that what you will.